Hi, my name is Katrina Pickard, and I am the founder of Solomon's Porch Ministry. We serve the unhoused community of the Oklahoma City area, and we have started a series of talks called Hope Rising. And in these talks, we are getting to know our volunteers and our guests and find out what really motivates them to serve the unhoused population. And today I have a dear friend with me. His name is Jacob Hankins, and he is our barber. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you could come. You've been serving with us for quite a while now.
Yes, ma'am.
About, 8, 9 months?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much for serving.
It's an honor.
So you are a licensed barber.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's not where your story starts, is it?
Absolutely not.
Well, you're in a treat today because Jacob has an amazing and inspiring story. So why don't you share with us?
So growing up, I think I struggled as a teenager with identity and knowing who I was or what I was capable of. I struggled with failure, just a lack of understanding of just to grasp life, I guess. Everything was out of place to me, and so I resorted to, I was very athletic. I didn't fit in with the jocks though. I didn't fit in with the dorks. I didn't fit in with. I didn't have any kind of clique, But I started to fit in with those other kids who had holes inside of them just as big as mine, and so I filled my hole with the things that they filled theirs with. And it led me to a deep, dark path of addiction and just experimenting with all kinds of different substances. And it led to a huge, I was in rebellion as a kid, and it just led me down a really dark path of addiction.
Yeah. Well, it's no secret that the unhoused community also struggles with addiction and incarceration, and it is a cycle that is very, very hard, not only on the person, but on the person's family. I actually experienced that with Logan, yes, being in his addiction before, yes, for 15 years. So yes, from a parent standpoint, I can see that, but how, you share only what you want, but do you have more you'd like to share about your story?
Absolutely. I think the hardest thing for a person who is struggling with these things is honesty. And I wasn't honest with myself or anybody else. I just kept masking and masking and masking, But the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yes.
And I was raised in the church, but my life didn't reflect that,
Did you ever end up in a situation where you were homeless or unhoused?
I was kind of when I was a teenager, I got caught with weed at school. I got caught with weed before I ever even smoked it. That only happens to me.
Right,
I just had it at
right.
school one day, and I was planning on smoking, and I got caught. And so my mother gave me an ultimatum: either you can follow our rules, or you can go live with your father. And I chose to go live with my dad because I thought that I was going to have freedom,
Yeah.
And when I got there, it wasn't the case. He was trying very hard to be my father, but I wasn't giving him the time of day. And so I got kicked out of his house, Yeah. And I came home to trash bags full of clothes on my front yard. And so I left, but I didn't have anywhere to go, So I ended up house hopping from friend to friend to friend. And we lived in Texas, and this was back in the 90s, and cocaine and acid and raves and all that. That was the scene that I was doing, And I was stealing, and I was selling pills and all kinds of things, And I was on a very, very bad road, but I ended up not having any of my clothes left and nowhere to lay my head because everybody was just burnt out on this kid that, just wouldn't go home,
So what was the turning point for you? Because that must have been very, very difficult. We're talking about
Absolutely.
people who hit rock bottom. That sounds
Absolutely.
like you were at rock bottom.
I was several times.
Was there an incident or a person who influenced you or your change? Because you're definitely not that way today.
No, man.
So
By the grace of God, I'm not. But yes, there is. And actually, like when people share their testimony of how God changed them, I I hear a lot of testimonies and people can boil it down to a single moment. And for me, I don't know if I have that. It's kind of a gradual thing with me. But this moment, if I had to make it a moment, would be this moment. And it was, I think the hardest thing for an addict is knowing they need help and then getting there, getting to the place where they have the support or the institution, because a lot of the places that you're trying to get into, you have to do all the footwork yourself.
yes.
And so you're constantly like trying to talk yourself out of it. There's temptation all around you. It's hard. It's like the hardest thing ever. And so me and Justine had just been married for maybe not even a year, maybe.
So Justine's your wife.
Justine is my wife, yes.
And y'all met when you were both in addiction,
Absolutely.
correct?
I was still healing from an overdose on fentanyl.
Oh, wow.
But we met in a church group. Her mother is a godly woman, and I was trying to get back on my feet. I was a single dad recovering from a fentanyl overdose, had a whole bunch of surgeries, kidney failure, all that. Got lucky that because I was on dialysis for a long time.
Wow.
And lucky my kidneys kicked back in. But
yeah,
met Justine, and I rejected her in the beginning. So, and this is a love story. And because I told her I needed to work on myself, and I couldn't do that with the distraction. But like 2 or 3 weeks later,
she
moved
loved
in.
Being called a distraction, right?
Yeah, she ended up moving in like 3 weeks later, but it's never stopped from there. She is my soulmate. But
let's talk about your recovery a little bit.
Okay.
Because there's actually a program here that our church is partnered with that had helped you greatly, right?
Yes, Hope is Alive. Yes.
Yes. Well, why
But
don't you?
can I get back to that moment?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Well, okay. So me and Justine were fighting. We didn't really start fighting in the beginning of our relationship. I was trying to stay sober. But eventually, if you get two addicts together, things are going to happen. And so we were fighting one day, and she's not very confrontational, so she leaves whenever we fight. And I had talked her into letting me pick her up. And so I was drunk and I was high. And luckily I didn't take my kids with me. I let my neighbor watch them. But I was driving, and I was speeding through an alleyway. And on my way to go get my wife is my dope dealer. And I talked myself into getting dope. And so I was going through the alleyway because he served us like McDonald's. He would set it on the seat, I'd give him the money, and then I'd take off. Well, I changed my mind in the alleyway. But I was driving angry. I was just upset about my life. I was speeding. And I thought I could make it from one intersection to the other without stopping. And I T-boned a car, and I hit it spinning. And I hit a telephone pole. I was bleeding everywhere. I knew I was going to prison because I've had 2 other DUIs. And so I was sitting there. I put a hat on, and I was just trying to keep a low profile because I knew the cops were coming. And so I tried to call Justine. She wouldn't answer the phone. So I called a pastor friend of mine, and he just prayed for me right there. He prayed for grace and favor. And everybody shows up. Police, fire trucks, ambulances. I can hear people in the background screaming, crying. I was so self-absorbed, not wanting to get caught. I couldn't even look up what I'd done, And I could hear kids are crying and being taken away in the ambulance, But the police, they approached me, and they barely asked me any questions. They say, "Sir, do you know how fast you're going?" I said, "No." And they're like, "Why are you driving so reckless?" And that was it. They gave me 2 tickets. I'm bleeding. They gave me 2 tickets, one for reckless driving and one for speeding, and they sent me on my way. My car is totaled, and I'm dumbfounded.
Wow.
I'm like, this is not protocol for law enforcement.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm bleeding all over these tickets that I just got, and in my mind there, I'm thinking, I got away, and I went right back at it, right back at it. But 3 weeks later, I was at my kids' school, and one of their teachers, I was dropping them off, and one of their teachers approaches me. She says, Jacob, can I talk to you for a second out front? And so she brings me out front. She's like, I've been trying to build up the courage to tell you this, but I forgive you. I said, forgive me for what? She said, yeah, I'm the one that you hit in that car. And I didn't even know that, and it hit me like a bag of bricks, like I need help, for one, I need help. And then it hit me like, what if I had my kids?
Mm-hmm.
What if I had my wife in the car? Like, I hurt this lady. I sent her kids to the hospital, and I totaled her car. And then it hit me again. I'm like, this woman who had every right to resent me sought me out and forgave me. And I was like, man, that is the grace and the love of our Father.
Yeah.
Right there. Changed me. Because it's so powerful.
That is powerful.
But then even still, like I told you, like the hardest part for that addict is knowing they need the help and then getting there. Because we lived in Lawton and Teen Challenge is right there in Cache. And I'm like, all right. And I got a bed there. I got one, but I had a week, until somebody was, I guess, clearing out or something. And I changed my mind. I lollygagged and I lost the bed. Mm. And then I messed around for a little bit more. And then finally it was just like, I got to go, and without thinking about it. I got a bed in Tulsa at the Teen Challenge, and not Tulsa, Stillwater. And it was a brand new Teen Challenge. I lasted a week, And Justine, she went to Teen Challenge in Jakarta. And she was staying in her program. She was doing so good, My kids got taken. Oh, they didn't get taken, but they were staying with my sister-in-law. And in the beginning of my recovery in this moment, like, I left Teen Challenge and I was feeling really sorry for myself. I was like, I'm failing. Like, I'm going to fail. And like everything in me wanted to go back to Lawton, And Teen Challenge, they make you buy a bus ticket. That way, if you decide you want to leave, you can't stick around there. Like, you go home, And so leaving Stillwater, I got on a bus. And in my head, I'm going back to Lawton. But I'm going to Oklahoma City, only to find out that the bus no longer runs to Lawton. So I'm stuck. By the grace of God, I'm stuck. Because if I would have gone back to Lawton, I would have gone right back at it. And the only person that I knew in the city had been sober for 30 years. Oh, and he gave me a room. And he let me stay there. Got me going to AA meetings and stuff like that. But he worked during the daytime, or he worked during the nighttime and slept during the daytime. And I don't know nobody. So I'm sitting in this apartment all by myself, like trying to stay sober, trying not to get out and get busy and all that. But I'm going stir crazy in this apartment, so I start walking. And this is my first time ever walking around here. And so I'm over on 16th in MacArthur, an apartment complex in the ghetto, And I start walking. I go down 16th, take a right on MacArthur, go all the way down, I think it's 23rd, take a right. And I get all the way down almost to a crest. And there's a bus stop right there. And on the other side of the grass, in the grass, is what appears to be a homeless man. And I had a few dollars in my pocket. Well, I'm walking. When I'm walking, I'm feeling sorry for myself. I feel like a failure. I feel like everything I've felt in the past my whole life. And then I see this man. I'm like, man, I'll give him $1. So I pulled out $1. But when I pull out this $1, and I'm going to hand it to him, he pulls out $1 and he hands it to me. And I'm like, what in the world? And I was like dumbfounded, and I'm like, what in the world? And then I just couldn't do anything but just cry, And because this man that I had the audacity to think that I had something that he needed, he handed me humility, Yeah. He handed me humility, because. And my whole perception just changed in that moment. And I had a little more pep in my step, I almost felt like that man was an angel, because just the look on his face, this man met me along the road and gave me what he thought I needed, And I left and I walked and there's a little thrift store on 16th going back to the apartment complex. I didn't want to go back to the apartment complex, so I just went inside there. And I was like, I don't need to be spending any money. I don't have much. And then God brought it to my mind, you don't have a Bible. And so I went to the back and I started looking around, and I probably touched every Bible in there, but guess how much that Bible was? 99 cents.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so I had, and that whole picture was like a picture of my life. In the beginning, I was lost, I was broken. And then somewhere along the way, God met me, and He gave me what I needed, which was His Word.
Right.
And He gave it to me, which is what I needed for life, And that was kind of, those are two like very impactful moments that just really, like, even in my addiction, even though I'm falling, it's the thing, it's God, it's His faithfulness in my life that just has changed me, and it keeps pushing me forward, no matter how hard it gets or how tough it gets, And I feel like even in barbering, like, I get to be that, because it's one thing to be on this side of the brokenness, and then to be on the other side. You know what I mean? It's so beautiful, and
yeah, I saw that with Logan, my son.
Yeah.
Because there was many times I had no idea where he was
Mm-hmm.
or if he was okay, but I was always praying for him, and I knew God honored that. And then when he came home and with me for the last year and a half of his life, I saw the difference that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an amazing and powerful story. You moved me to tears. I was crying. It talks about how deep addiction can take you. And it can also show you how deep God's grace is.
It is.
Because by all rights, you should have been in prison for that car accident because of the stuff that was in your system. But God loves us so much. He gives us chance and another chance. And but your story isn't finished there, because you went into Hope is Alive, which is a addiction and recovery. And there's one particular person you've told me about. Would you like to share that story?
Absolutely. So before I got into Hope is Alive, I almost given up on barbering. Like, I just gave up, and when I got to Hope is Alive, I still brought all of my barbering stuff, because there's always that little maybe, we'll see. But right by the sober living house was a Sport Clips, and it was the first place that I walked. I didn't even walk in there. I just called. I said, "Are you guys hiring?" "Yeah, absolutely." Can I fill an application? How do I do that? And I just filled it out online. They called me. It's almost the same day, So I had a job almost the same day at Hope is Alive, with Sport Clips. And so I started working there, and the guys would come, in, and they would come up there and start visiting. And I would, give them discounts and stuff like that. But I eventually set up shop in the house. And
in Hope is Alive.
Yeah, and I was a little rusty too in the beginning too, so that they were kind of my guinea pigs, But some of them didn't care anyways, because you're getting people off the streets, you're getting people from prison, you're getting people that are just don't care about themselves anymore.
Yeah.
I think because I became a program manager there, I ended up starting to work for them. I was the head honcho over 2 houses. I oversaw everybody's program. Mm-hmm. My life changed in that place. And barbering was like the instrument, it was my ministry, you know what I mean? And so it was my way of connecting with each one of the guys on a different, more personal level, because I had my own office in that place. And then I had my barber chair. So I not only did like one-on-one counseling with them and just asked them how their day was going, how, fitness, finances, family, faith, all these, I would go through those things, how is your faith? How's your relationship with Christ? But also know that I am still in recovery myself, It helped me,
And while you're doing this, Justine is still doing her thing in Teen Challenge.
No,
So
no,
no,
actually, my wife is still, she is in her addiction still.
okay.
So, and I didn't know it. I didn't know it. That's her story.
Yes, that's her
That's
story
her
to tell.
story. But there's redemption in that story,
Yeah.
you know, and that it also shows the strength of marriage when God's a part of it. You know what I mean?
Let's transition from Hope is Alive to Solomon's Porch. So there was actually someone that I was in contact with at Hope is Alive who gave me your number and recommended you, highly recommended you. So when I reached out and asked you if you wanted to be part of this ministry, your yes was, all right, thank you, Lord, because I already knew you had a heart for people who struggled.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the heart to bring restoration, even with the dignity of getting a nice haircut. We cannot underestimate the power of that to make somebody feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And so you came, and you're now our lead barber, and you're leading our group.
Mm-hmm.
We have another barber and a hairstylist that joins, and I'm hoping to see that grow, as we've already talked about. But is there a story of someone who depended on you to be there to give a story, or your why?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch, but if linked to specifically Solomon's Porch, it was actually a resident of mine in Hope is Alive. And I did his intake, and he was coming off the streets then, and he lasted 3 or 4 months, and then he was gone, and but I think it was the first or maybe the first time I was cutting hair with you guys, and there he was, waiting in line to get his haircut from me once again.
Wow.
And he didn't look the same. He didn't look the same. But I knew what he wanted for a haircut already.
Yeah.
And so he sat in my chair, and it was like a reunion, I was like, I went up and hugged him, but he got to sit in my chair, and I got to talk to him about where he was at, and I know him, so I know what to ask him,
right,
and I know how to encourage him, and so I did, and I think he, in the Bible, they call them the one another's, bear one another's burdens,
right,
and stuff like that. But I think that was it, that's kind of what I see in my ministry is, they come back, it's not, I just get it's not just a haircut, it's a relationship.
yes,
You know what I mean? And that's what these people need,
absolutely.
I actually, we spent the night one time downtown in Tent City with me and my friend. We didn't sleep, but one of the people out there told me, and it's never left me. He's like, you can bring us clothes, you can bring us food, you can bring us shoes, you can bring us all that. We get that all the time. We don't need that, They do need it, but they don't need it as much as they need relationship.
Right. And that's part of the heart of Solomon's Porch ministry, is because when we go out to serve, we bring them tables and chairs to sit at so we can sit with them and talk to them and to see where they're at. And even if we can't provide a solution in that moment, we are building community and we're listening and we are sharing prayer with them. Because I absolutely agree. Relationships is the difference.
Yeah. And to be served, for them to sit for my buddy to sit in my chair and for me to care for him the way that he needs to be cared for, because I don't know if you've ever sat in a chair and got a bad haircut from somebody who's just doing it real quick or going through the motions, they're just there for the money. Or if you've actually sat there and had a barber who's taking their time, and you can tell that it's more than a haircut. It's more,
Absolutely.
so much more.
Yeah, it's meeting a in-depth need within the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I was teaching my son how to mow the yard, you know, I told him to go. You always box it in twice, and then because it's like a haircut, kind of box it in twice, and then you go up and down, But you can't stop there, You got to weed eat, Same with trimming the hairline, You got to
Right,
weed,
right.
eat the yard,
Right.
But that's not the best part. When you get done with the yard, you get everything looking crisp and everything. I always take them out to the street,
Mm-hmm.
and then we turn around, and then we look at it.
Yeah.
That's the blessing right there. So
Yes.
when you turn that mirror around,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them, they don't like to look at what they see, but there's something different, something that they remember, there I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's actually what God does with us.
Yeah.
Because I can remember my own testimony, of all the things I've been through in the miry pit that I put myself in, and then God's grace bringing me out.
Mm-hmm.
And He's saying, your testimony is a mirror to what I'm doing in your house, your heart.
Absolutely.
And your life, and it's time to share that with others.
Absolutely.
And we get to do that when we go out there to serve at Solomon's Porch. It's this has been so rewarding, and God has been He's just blessing this ministry with people just like you.
Yeah.
Jacob, I want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast, Hope Rising. And that's exactly what you do whenever you give haircuts out there. You give them hope that rises up in, and they can look at that mirror and see a little bit of dignity, restored back to them. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on the
Absolutely.
podcast. Thank you for being vulnerable and transparent with your stories that you told us. They're just not stories. They're part of who you are and part of God's redemption work within you. And I am so thankful that we have you. Well, actually, your whole family,
Yeah.
because your son and daughter and wife come as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry they couldn't come here today, but they had other responsibilities. But it's volunteers like you and your whole family that strengthens this ministry to do the good work that God has put before us.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Thank you for this opportunity,
Yes.
And even getting to share the gospel on that little karaoke machine that one time.
Absolutely.
Because when I think about it, I think about the difference between a seasoned Christian and a baby Christian. There's no difference in the toil.
Right.
The same substance that we toil for, the gospel, it's the same.
Yes.
Whether it's seasoned or it's new,
Right.
And that was a first for me. That was a challenge for me. I was facing my own fear of man, but but I know that's the goal.
Yes.
That's the mission.
Yes. We do a lot at Solomon's Porch, but the bottom two most important things that we can succeed at is sharing the gospel and building community through relationships.
Yeah.
And all the rest of that we do is meeting their physical needs. But if we only just meet their physical needs and don't take care of their soul, then what are we doing?
Absolutely.
So I love that Solomon's Porch is going in this direction. And we couldn't do it without you. So thank you once again. I appreciate you, Jacob.
Thank you.